All right, so I believe we are live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of DSI Live. I'm your DSI founder, Vanessa Emerson, here with Cheryl McKenna of Merchant Advocate. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hello, thank you. Welcome.
Glad you're here. So Merchant Advocate was a virtual sponsor at our Jumpstart meeting in January, which means that you were with us in spirit and we had your materials there. And so I'm really excited that we're able to bring you here today so that I'm just noticing, I feel like I'm really big compared to you. I'm gonna like push my laptop back. There we go.
Should I go? I could go in.
There we go. So I'm really excited that you're here so that our members can get a chance to meet you and learn a little bit more about Merchant Advocate. Like, what is that? For those who don't understand, we can kind of figure it out from your title, but share us, what is Merchant Advocate, and most importantly, why as speakers and consultants do we care? Like, what is it? How does it help us?
Right, absolutely. So Merchant Advocate, we work with merchant services. So for the dental industry, that is the ability for a practice to take a patient credit card payment. And we are not a merchant provider. So that is what I really want everyone to understand, because what we do is completely unique, okay? We sit on the same side of the table as the practice, right? We sit on the same side of the table as the practice. So our goal is to get them the best rates and fees and the best program that actually meets their needs, because merchant services, unlike what a lot of people believe, it's not a commodity. I was talking to a practice the other day and I was like, well, you have a boring merchant services program. And she said, what, like, could there be an interesting one? I'm like, oh yeah, there are really interesting ones that can do lots of great things. So, but Merchant Advocate, we were created in 2007 by our CEO, Eric Cohen, really to bring fairness and transparency to the merchant services industry for the business owners, because it's unregulated. So we are the watchdogs for our clients so they can get the best program and they can get really good rates.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Now, hear me back. I'll try not to yell. I'm having problems with BeLive today, guys. Sorry if that's a little disturbing in our feed. And let me take just a quick second to say hello, Cindy and Reagan and Stephanie and the many others that I don't have your name on my phone. But chime in and say hi to Cheryl. We're glad you're here. We're going to get into some really juicy stuff here in just a minute. Hang with me. I love that there's this type of a watchdog, somebody that you're really our partner. You really help us help our dental practice clients, for those of us who are consultants especially. So let's dive right into the heart of it, shall we? I know we've got a couple of things we want to be sure and chat about. And what I put in the post was that we wanted to talk for sure about touchless credit card payments. Right now, when we're recording this, we're mid-pandemic and offices opening, and people we're all just trying to figure out what's this new normal and what do we have to do, should we do for our clients, our patients. So as it relates to taking payments, could you give us some what are your thoughts around the touchless credit card payment options?
Absolutely. So the ADA has recommended touchless credit card payments. So what a lot of practices, what I've seen, so 99% of my clients are dental practices, and I've focused on dental for the last 9 years. I've been in merchant services for 23. So when the pandemic started and I realized, people didn't want to touch anything in the face masks, and I was like, this is really going to change. The ADA has recommended touchless credit card payments, and a lot of practices are taking that to mean, well, we won't actually ever accept the credit card physically, right? We'll do a text to pay. We will just key in the patient's credit card information. But what they're not realizing is that method of accepting a payment when you're not reading a magnetic strip on the back of a credit card, or, like you're not using an Apple Pay or a Google Pay, or you're not using the chip in the card, Visa and MasterCard charge a lot more for that type of payment. And a lot of people don't know that. So I started on a journey of how can a practice keep their costs low and still eliminate as many of the touches as possible, right? So that's kind of where I started my journey about 6 weeks ago, and I've come up with all sorts of interesting things that a practice can do. So
Sure.
Okay. So sometimes going touchless will require that you have a new merchant provider, but not always. The number one thing that's going on right now that helps practices be touchless is that you're no longer required to get a signature on a receipt. Okay, so that will help with, it used to be, here's the receipt, they would tear it off, they would hand it to the patient would sign it, they would hand it back. Maybe you were handing back a pen, or a pen went into a jar, right? Where everyone used that pen out of that jar. So those things obviously need to change. So please note that you no longer need a signature on a receipt as long as the card is present at the time of the sale. The way that Visa and MasterCard, American Express, and Discover identify that it's a card present sale is that the card was read either as a chip or a swipe or something contactless, but it proves that that card was physically at that practice, or any business, but at that practice. And that allows the practice to not require that signature.
So can I stop you right here? What I'm hearing then is that I, as the patient, would take my credit card out, I'm going to swipe, or I'm going to put it in. And there might be plastic or something around the terminal itself, but they're not touching my card. They're not keying anything from my card. So far where we're at is we're just swiping or inserting. And I don't have to sign in order. It won't be we won't get in trouble if we don't get a signature, in other words, because we've proven, just like at Walmart or somewhere, right? I just put my numbers in. Okay.
The other thing I think practices should be thinking about is a swivel stand for their credit card terminal, right? So if they can have a swivel stand, because you do have to put in the dollar amount, but if the practice can put in the dollar amount and then turn that terminal around, that terminal's on the stand. So if they're not doing debit, so get rid of your PIN debit. You don't want anybody putting in their PIN number, right? Because then they're touching it. If you get rid of the PIN debit, and by the way, it doesn't cost anymore, and I don't want to get into the weeds on that, okay? But you don't really need that anymore, so don't worry about it. You might want to disable that. But you could just turn it around, and then all the patient would have to do, or responsible party, is swipe or chip. So they wouldn't have to actually touch the machine. Then the team member could flip it back around, do whatever needed to be done. Okay, if the patient wants a paper receipt, I suppose that would be their choice, and then they could tear off the receipt and give it to the patient for their records. But if you have a system that allows you to email a receipt, you don't even need to hand paper back and forth. So it's really about looking at your system. A lot of people don't even know what their system's capable of because we've never had to have these conversations before. It's always just been maintained status quo. And now that's changing.
So I'll jump in with a thought here too, and I didn't chat about this, but I'm going to ask you something. But first I'm going to say, hey guys, we have a whole group of wonderfulness here watching us. We've got Kevin, Shelly Renee, Miss Linda Miles, Rhonda, Sarah, Amy, Charlotte, Tina, Cindy, thank you all for being here. This is great content, super, super important for each of you as speakers and consultants. And thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for being here with us. You know, you and I didn't chat about this ahead of time. We really didn't do a lot of prep. We're just like, hey, let's just hop on.
Pretty much now.
This is important. So I haven't asked you this, and I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna volunteer you.
Okay.
Because what I heard in there was even the potential we could kind of go down another rabbit hole and talk about why don't we need to accept the debit, you know, the credit, like how do we do that? So I'm assuming that anyone who's watching who has questions on this, you might be able to hop on the phone and answer some questions for them and help guide them with the
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we go ahead and share that now? What would that email be?
Yeah, so you could email me at C for Cheryl, then my last name McKenna, McKenna at merchantadvocate.com. So again, that's C McKenna at merchantadvocate.com. Or you could also text me or call me at 720-526-5318.
So I'm going to put these up here while we continue to chat, and then there'll be little ants across the bottom of the screen or something.
Yeah.
So it'll show for us. That's awesome. So Cheryl, thank you. So far we've talked about how do we set up our little terminal. We can do it in a way that they can swipe, they can insert the chip, we can have it on a swivel so we can turn it around and we can put in the code. This way we're not wiping down pens at the end of the day too, right? I'm thinking like if we don't have to have them sign and throw the daisy pen back in the cup. Other thoughts on this? Is there?
So there's another way to do it. The other way to actually have a card present is, I don't know how many of you go to Chick-fil-A, but they have little pads and then they have a reader, right? So there are readers that go into tablets or iPads. As long as the team is always in control of the iPad, you can either have a reader that goes into the headphone jack of the iPad, or they have ones that are Bluetooth. So the team is only touching the iPad, and the patient could have access to the little reader, but it doesn't have any buttons that they actually have to touch on there. So again, all they have to do is touch their credit card, right? And then on the app for the iPad, when it comes to the signature part, you know, we're used to what we used to do in the pre-COVID, they would turn that around and we would sign it with our finger. Well, now all you need to do is press the little bypass button. If you're on an app that has that option, that has updated for that, you just press the bypass button. You have the email address in there if they want a receipt, and you email them a receipt and they never had to sign. So again, the only thing in that case with like a Bluetooth reader, it's just, if that reader's affixed to something, they would never even have to touch it. They just swipe or chip or tap. So yeah, and then the receipt is electronic, or it's no receipt at all. But generally people want the receipt from their dental visit because, you know, a lot of those can be write-offs. So yeah.
Awesome. So let me throw it here. And we've got Debbie and Victoria joining us. Thank you guys for being here. Hey, if you guys have questions about this, we're talking about touchless credit card payments. If you have questions for Cheryl, please put them in our comments. We'd love for you to say hello, and we'd love to get a little interaction out there. We'd be happy to take your questions. So we're talking about holding the tablet versus the little, what do you call it? Terminal, the little terminal on the desk. So those are some great options. I mean, that's pretty comprehensive. Is there more we should know?
Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of you vault the credit card. Okay. So what this means is you're saving the patient's credit card in a secure area. This is not hand key, typing in the credit card number and putting it somewhere in the practice management software. Please don't do that. This is storing the credit card in such a way that no one can see the full credit card number, right? But you can utilize that credit card for balances owed. And I think this is going to be, the economy is, hi, kitty. Obviously an interesting topic for the feline population as well. But okay, now I've lost my train of thought.
We were talking about
vaulting credit cards. Okay, thank you. Reel it back in, right? So you can, that way, if you have your patient's credit card on file, you do not have to chase patients for payment anymore, right? So this becomes especially important in a case where insurance pays and there is a balance owed. So what are people generally doing? Maybe they're mailing out a statement and they're putting it in the mail. And then I was talking to a practice last week and they were like, well, people aren't comfortable anymore with writing down their credit card number on that statement and then sending back in the mail. And I was like, you're still letting them do that? Like, don't do that. So once that, if a practice out there is doing that, once that patient puts that credit card number on that statement and puts it into the mail, it becomes the practice's liability for payment card industry compliance. As soon as it leaves, as soon as it goes into the mail. So who knows what happens on the way? The practice isn't in any way, they have no control over what's going on, but yet they're liable, right? So that's not a good idea. And vaulting credit cards will drastically reduce outstanding AR. Some of my practices they vault every patient's credit card that they can. And what I notice is that the practices that introduce this concept to their patients with confidence, so it's not like, well, is it okay if we hold your card on file? No, it's like, for your convenience. This is for your convenience. And I've had a lot of people say to me, well, Cheryl, what if someone doesn't want to do that? Okay, how many of us use Amazon?
Yeah.
Even those of us maybe that didn't use Amazon before this happened, we're probably using Amazon. They have our card on file. So as long as it's held in a vault, meaning the processor is totally responsible for the security of that credit card, then that's definitely a great way to go. And also you might want to maybe utilize that vaulted credit card if someone can't pay right away. Maybe they get paid on the first, so can you charge them on the second? Well, then you already have it in there. You don't have to write it down anywhere. You don't have to remember that. So vaulting the credit card is really good as well.
But what I haven't heard that term before, so I've definitely learned some things today. So we're really, so far we've just been talking about touchless credit card payments, but it occurs to me this is just one little small, this is like a value add you brought of like, oh yeah, by the way, I see that the industry is struggling with this. Here's some ideas on how to make that easier. Mm-hmm. But what you do with Merchant Advocate is so much larger. Are there any other tips you'd like to share with us today? Because when I think of what you do, I think how you help our speaker consultants help their clients save money by looking at what they're paying for credit card processing fees and the like. Could you, is there anything else that's relevant to like today or something you feel would be a really hot, important thing for us to know that you'd like to share with those who are tuning in?
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of as a quick recap, Merchant Advocate, we sit on the same side of the table as any business owner that accepts credit cards from their customers for payment. I focus on dental. That's what I specialize in. That's what I've been doing for a long time. So what we see, and if I work with a lot of consultants, and what they do is they just say to their client, hey, we want to make sure that you're not paying too much, right? So there are a lot of consultants that deal with profitability in many different areas. Merchant services is an area that is often overlooked, especially if the practice is integrating their merchant services into their practice management software. So they're gaining all these efficiencies, which are great, but at the same time, most of them are overpaying by at least a third. And when you look at the statements, if anyone's ever looked at a merchant statement, it might as well be written in Egyptian hieroglyphics. And because it's an unregulated industry and you can't really understand what all those line items are, 70% of the statements that we look at from practices that are integrated into their practice management software are being overcharged by 30+%. There's no reason for that except the fact that, number one, dental is probably the busiest industry I've ever worked in my entire life. Number two, the statements are designed to inhibit transparency. Number three, they're confusing. And number four, they can add rates or increase fees at any time in the merchant industry. And they do because they're unregulated. So specifically, the two things, and I posted one on Facebook the other day because I was just so mad about it. But one of my practices, she uses practice management software. I really don't want to say which one, but what we do at Merchant Advocate, besides negotiate rates and fees, so if we find that a practice is being overcharged, and there's more reasons than just their processor is overcharging them. I mean, it's actually a really complicated industry. There could be a procedural error at the practice. But the point is that when we look at that statement, all those confusing line items give us a ton of data to drill down into. And that's really fun because we can see every single area where the practice is overpaying, and then we fix it. Whether we have to train someone or make software communicate with a merchant provider or go to the merchant provider and be like, no, this isn't a real fee. That's made up. There's no cost for that. You just created a really nifty sounding line item, and now you're collecting $96 a month from this client. So we go through, but once we do that, we also audit the statement every month. And that's where a lot of the watchdog part of it comes in. So what I've seen is that the processors have raised rates in the month of April, which to me is, it's like, it makes me mad, it makes me sad. How can they do that? Go ahead, you say it, Vanessa.
I'll say it, unethical. In my mind, we're in the middle of a freaking pandemic. People aren't working. What are you doing? I know. I can say it because I don't work in Merchant Advocates. I won't get in trouble.
And so there was supposed to be one of the largest increases in a decade that took effect on April 17th. But the card brands, so Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, that's what I'm talking about when I say card brands. The card brands decided, you know what, this is a really bad time to do that. So we're going to postpone it. They didn't tell us when they were going to go ahead and, they didn't say, well, now it's going to be July. So we have no direction about that. But what we know is that the processors themselves, and not all of them, but a lot of the processors themselves went ahead and increased rates. So guess what? Their cost of doing business went up $0. So everything that they did is pure profit. Really? Well, how could you do that? Have you not noticed there's an issue? There's a huge issue with people and businesses closing and people struggling, and you actually thought that was acceptable? Okay. Anyways, you can see how upset I get.
So what do we do about that?
Well, I mean, not to be salesy, but Merchant Advocate, we will look at practice's statement, and if they're being overcharged and they want us to negotiate on their behalf, then we will do so. If we are able to save a practice money, then we get a portion of it. That's the only way we get paid, right? So if they have a great program and they're not being overcharged, well, good for them. Or if they don't have a good program and they are being overcharged, but we are not successful with negotiations or any of the other fixes we tried to apply, then the practice owes us nothing. And I think it's really cool because first of all, we generate the money for our paycheck. Plus, we generate more money that goes back into the practice's pocket. So we generate revenue for our clients.
There's no risk, in other words.
No, there's no risk whatsoever. And that's what's so fun about it. And it's fun to figure out what's going on. And I love to have the conversation with the practice, like after we've got the new rates and fees in effect and we've got the new statement. And I always set up a go-to meeting with my client. I'm like, okay, here's our report of what we did. Here's your old statement. Here's your new statement. Do you see how this was this and now it's that? And yeah, we show them exactly how we positively impacted their bottom line. And that's the fun call. So
that is fun. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be of interest to so many practices that especially, I don't know why it shows up under my head.
I see that.
But why don't you just lean in? I can't make it go. Okay, there we go.
Wait, it's always opposite. It confuses me. I'll just look at it like the Brady Bunch. Wait, is it looking at it opposite? No.
It's always backwards. Yeah, it's like this way.
I know.
So, but especially right now, it would be an important thing for dental practices to be able to, if they're trying to, overhead's already increasing with all the hoops we're needing to jump through. So it'd be great timing. So I'm going to run up here in front of us again one more time, your email address and your phone. I want to encourage everybody to reach out to Cheryl McKenna of Merchant Advocate. Now, we do have a little information about you on our website, on our Dental Speaker Institute site under our sponsors. You'll find Cheryl listed there with a couple of videos and some information and, all of the email and all this contact information. But I just really want to encourage you guys to reach out and find out if there's an opportunity for you to be able to work together with the clients that you work with, find out how it works, how you can help your clients by it just feels to me like there's no risk and the reward could be so substantial, and it gives our consultants an opportunity to be the heroes that bring in a great solution. And I just love that you have so much deep dental, so many years of working with dental practices. Like your experience is really deep there. I love that our colleague Penny Reed had recommended you, to put us together. And I know she just raves, and others I've talked to have really raved about the services that you guys provide.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really thrilled that we're sponsoring partners too. We work together to bring dental speaker education, and today this has been so beneficial to share with each of us ways that we can go back and take back to our clients some opportunities to help them. Is there anything before we're done? Anything in a parting words that anything I didn't cover that we feel we should cover before we go?
I just want everyone to know that I am so happy to be a resource for any consultant that's out there. Pick my brain. I also like to find solutions to problems that people are having. I mean, merchant services is actually it can be such an amazing tool for a practice, but it just has been treated like a commodity for so many years. That's starting to change, but yeah, there are so many things that I can help a consultant with so that they can help their practice. I mean, obviously profitability is huge, but there's a lot that's going on right now in order to try and keep teams safe and patients safe. So I would be more than happy to brainstorm with someone, or I might already have a solution. So yeah, absolutely reach out.
Yay. That's C. McKenna at merchantadvocate.com. Be sure you reach out to Cheryl, get on her calendar, and then let us know what your experience is. Someone here says, and they go see, I have to go see who it is. Oh, Cindy says, Cheryl has saved my clients a huge amount of money. I can't recommend her enough. She always makes herself available. Thank you for that, Cindy.
Thank you.
That so many of our colleagues are thrilled with the services, but what's surprising to me is that I haven't heard maybe it's just because I'm like one level removed, but I hadn't heard about Merchant Advocate before Penny shared you with me. So I really want to help get that out there, because it feels like across the board, everybody would benefit from this. So awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for your thoughts. If you have a question, you're going to have to type quick because we're almost done.
And I always say, we can't help people if they don't know that we exist. So it's exactly these types of events. Thank you so much, Vanessa, that allow us to get the word out so people do know that we exist. It's just such a unique service. So yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's really awesome. Thank you so much for today. And thanks for being a sponsoring partner with Jumpstart. We really do appreciate our partners. And
and I hope to see everyone there next January. So fingers crossed.
In January. We are planning on an in-person meeting. In fact, we have some really big announcements to make coming up soon. I'm just right on the verge of being able to announce a couple of really big, exciting things for all of our Jumpstart members.
Cool.
So awesome. So until next time, everybody be well. Thanks again so much for being here, Cheryl. And I don't know that we have any more questions. I'm just looking here. We're getting great comments. Thank you guys for watching. And everybody be well. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.